Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to the joint public hearing meeting, June 10th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a joint meeting with the planning board and the commissioners for the purpose of conducting a public hearing. First, I will need the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, motion passes. This is a request. Oh, all in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. The request is for conditional zoning for 2.30 acres partial from R4-C to PD plan development located at 901 McTodd Road. And we will hear from the planning department.
Hello, Commissioners and Mayor. I'm just going to go through these process slides real quick just to kind of talk about how tonight's public hearing is going to go, just so everybody in attendance as well as you guys get a refresher on that. So staff will provide a general overview of the request. The applicant will be here to provide any details of the request, as well as they have prepared a presentation of their own. The Board of Commissioners will have time to ask for questions and clarifications. The Planning Board will have time to ask for questions and clarifications. The Mayor will then open the joint public hearing. The public will make comment, and then the Mayor will close the joint public hearing. And then after the joint public hearing, there will be a Planning Board meeting where the Planning Board will have time to ask further questions and discuss, as well as possibly make a recommendation tonight. Rules for the public hearing. The public hearing is an opportunity for the public to express thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opinions regarding the proposed request to the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board. The Board of Commissioners, Planning Board, staff, and applicant will not engage in dialogue at this time. If the public has questions pertaining to the development, please contact town staff or the applicant following the joint public hearing. All right, now that those formalities are out of the way, I will start on my presentation. So, as the Mayor said, this is a plan development proposed for 901 McTodd, and this is plan development rezoning 2024-02. So first, I'm going to start by going through the standards for plan development. When hearing a plan development, the applicant of the plan development comes to the board with a proposal for a new district. And so with that, when evaluating that new district, the boards must keep these standards in mind. Whether the proposed zoning map amendment advances the public's health, safety, or welfare, whether and the extent to which the proposed rezoning is appropriate for its proposed location and is consistent with the proposed goals, objectives, and policies of the town's adopted policies, whether the approval of the rezoning is reasonable and within the public's interest, and then any other factors the Board of Commissioners may determine to be relevant. As well, a reminder, this is a plan development, and so when we're looking at these plan developments, we're often looking for a development that is better than the strict interpretation of the UDO standards, and so just keep that in mind as well. The property, which the property, which is 901 McTodd Road, the applicant being TMTLA, the property owner being Capital Properties of North Carolina, LLC. The acreage of this property is 2.3 acres. The current zoning for this is an R4 conditional, which I'll speak a little bit more on in a future slide. And then the proposed new zoning for this, if the board so chooses to adopt it, is for a plan development. With any public hearing, it is the town's responsibility to notify its citizens about this opportunity to come speak on behalf or against this development or in neutral. So the following notifications have been conducted. Public hearing signs have been posted on all frontages. This lot only has one frontage on McTodd Road, and so this picture here is just showing that sign posted on McTodd Road. Mailed notices were sent out to property owners within 750 feet of this property. The applicant, town staff posted in the paper of general circulation, and then as well, it was posted on the town's website. Site conditions. This is currently a vacant lot and has some tree growth on the lot, but other than that, there's no structure on this site currently. The current zoning, as I said before, is an R4 conditional. To the north is a light industrial district, and then to the south, as well as across the street, is heavy commercial, and then R2 to the south. And then there's also another PD that was approved previously on Pony Road, which is the Cadence Meadows plan development.
Is that what's in blue?
Yes, that's what's in blue, yes. And then an RMF district, which is the Shannon Park, I believe is what it's called, is catty corner. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the R4 conditional means. This was a previously approved conditional rezoning from ordinance 2021-75. The site plan that you see in front of you right now is the site plan that was approved with that conditional rezoning, as well as the conditions that are listed on the left. So as is, this project has not gone, this rezoning did not go through construction drawing review, but if the applicant so chose, they could bring this back and propose this at construction drawing phase, and this is what the board has previously approved within that conditional rezoning. So that includes a reduction of the front setback from 20 feet to 15 feet, a reduction in the rear setback from 15 to 5 feet, and then an agreement that a private maintenance agreement will be established for the shared driveways and other common infrastructure as the part of a homeowners association. So this was a bungalow court that was proposed in which there's a shared access to a number of different single-family home lots.
So could you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Could you just,
We'll-
can you
we'll-
clarify that again? Just, I'm confused as to,
Could you hold the questions until
I'm
you
sorry.
finish?
Okay.
And we'll go around the table. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just clarify real quick. So this is what was previously rezoned back in 2021. And so the current site conditions reflect that this approval with these conditions could potentially come back in for construction drawing review for approval, for full construction approval. So we're just making you aware of that because it's a little bit of a different district than a traditional R4 HC district, which would just be beholden to our Unified Development Ordinance if a by right development was to come in. So future land use was changed to reflect the rezoning that was done back in 2021. So this site is currently reflecting a general residential zoning classification. So a timeline of activities. The first review for this project was submitted back in January, on January 24th. Our reviews run on the first of the month, the first weekday of the month. So we didn't actually start the intake process for this project until the 1st of February. And so we did about a little over a month of reviews with the comment letter being sent out on March 11th. The TRC meeting for this project was held also on March 11th, and that's just the opportunity for the applicant to ask any questions of the TRC review committee, which makes up town staff as well as some of our development partners, our contracted engineer, City of Raleigh Public Utilities, and then also Wake County Environmental. So if they have any big red flags or anything that they're looking at with this site, they're able to kind of discuss that at that time. The second review was submitted in April, on April 11th, so about a month later. And then the comment letter was sent out to the applicant about 2 weeks later on the 30th. The third review was submitted on May 6th, and this review is just to make sure that they have all of their materials ready to bring before you guys and to put together in the packet. And then the packets were distributed last Thursday on the 6th. So this before you, this is the proposed plan for this site for the plan development request. A couple of things that I'm gonna note on this slide include that these are 13 townhomes. There are 3 open space areas, as well as a greenway, which is this green line to the north that's going to run along the stream buffer. As well, the applicant has proposed a type A buffer between them and the adjacent property, which is currently used for a church. And then as well, with there being a stream buffer to the north, they are proposing keeping some of that tree shade to kind of help with that buffer. And then I'll talk a little more in depth about some other elements of this plan in my following slides. So things to note. So I'm going to approach this a little differently than what you guys typically see, because this development holds a couple of things that are a little different than a lot of the current residential development that you guys are seeing. And so I'm going to kind of break some of those down for you to kind of take a look at those. And as I'm doing this, think about the plan development and what that process entails. So a plan development allows an applicant to come before you guys and present a new district, which basically sets new setbacks, new guidelines for what can be in that district, any other development standards that they deem to be part of their development. And it's your job as boards to engage with the developer in that process to kind of find that middle ground. And so I'm going to point out a couple of things that, as I said before, are not typically what you see with residential development here in Zebulon, and would not be permitted by right under our Unified Development Ordinance. So the first thing I'm going to mention is the front setback. So the applicant has proposed a 7.5 front setback for the townhomes fronting along MacTodd Road. I want to kind of break down what's going to be between them and the travel lane. So there is a 5-foot planting strip with street trees, as well as a 5-foot sidewalk. There's the 7-foot front setback, which will be made up of both some foundation plantings to help kind of visually break up the front facade from the road, as well as provide a little bit of landscaping on the front of the property. And then as well, there's going to be paths directly from the front doors to the sidewalk. So that really helps to provide future connectivity to make this site more walkable as our sidewalk network develops. As well, the applicant has provided that they will continue to have the modified type C buffer, the 15-foot modified type C buffer, in any area where there is no single-family home fronting. So when we're looking at the combined kind of setback from a travel lane, we're looking at about 17.5 feet. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. So part of kind of why the applicant is pushing the buildings forward a little bit is to allow for a little bit of a wider alleyway. This alleyway is a result of some life safety requirements, which require that there's enough radius and room for a fire truck to turn around. So this alleyway is basically serving as a large hammerhead for our fire trucks so that they're able to get to the back 4 properties and then turn around effectively and get out of the site. So they're proposing a 30-foot public alley, which is somewhat consistent with a suburban street, even though it's still going to just have that alley character with, and be classified as an alley with the garages loading onto the alley. Another thing to consider is that there are 4 units to the north, 10 through 13, that are fronting an open space. The front facade of the building and your front door, or the front door of the development, will be facing the open space with pedestrian connections between from the front door to the sidewalk, and then there will also be a path that leads back out to MacTodd Road. This will allow this development allows the whoever's living in these development to still have access to the MacTodd sidewalk, but they will not have a road in front of their house. And I'll touch a little bit in the next slide on what's going to be in that open space area, but that open space area is kind of intended for public gathering. So the applicant has also requested, sorry, give me 1 second. The applicant has also requested that instead of providing active open space, they're going to provide 50% of their required 10% open space set aside to be urban open space. The definition of active open space in our UDO is uses or structures intended for specific activity, active recreational use, such as playgrounds, ball fields, tennis courts, and other similar uses typically located in open space set-aside areas or parks. So for example, some of the examples were in there, but playgrounds, soccer fields, and pools. With this being such a small footprint, the applicant has thought that urban open space might be a better use of their open space areas, providing gathering locations for the citizens who live in these units. Greenway trails and dog parks do not fall under active open space. Urban open space is defined as a private common open space area located within an urban or higher density area that is intended to facilitate gathering of people, such as an outdoor dining area, plaza, or atrium. Outdoor grills, gardens, dog parks, fields for unscheduled play all fall within that category. So the applicant has proposed the following open space areas within each of their open space. Open space area 1, the applicant has proposed a pocket park, an outdoor grill area, 2 picnic tables, and a pollinator garden. In open space area number 2, the applicant has proposed a community garden. And then open space number 3, the applicant has proposed a dog park, which will also contain a drinking fountain with a dog fountain. So I'm going to talk through road improvements. So we typically see road improvements with most of the projects that we're seeing as we build our road network out. Road improvements are governed by our comprehensive transportation plan. This road is required to be, by our plan, to be a 2-lane median divided road. The applicant is proposing constructing the addition of that travel lane as well as part of the median. So again, the street network is made up of a 5-foot planting strip and a 5-foot sidewalk, a travel lane, and then a median. And that median, as you can see below, can either be a protected median, which would basically be kind of stopping the onset traffic on the other side, or in some cases it can be a turn lane that allows for someone to move over to that lane to make a turn rather than waiting in the middle of the road to make the turn. And then the other side of the road will not be touched by the applicant. That will be the responsibility of whoever chooses to develop the parcels on the other side of MacTodd Road.
Who pays for the median? Is that a fee in lieu, half and half?
Yeah. So the median is one part of the road structure that we do collect a fee in lieu for, but we do require that the applicant, when developing a side of the road, build it out so that there is room for the median. And so part of that, the applicant has provided 5 feet extra of right-of-way dedication for the site as well.
Excuse me, I didn't instruct in the beginning, but will everyone please hold their questions to after the staff does their presentation?
Sometimes it's hard, but I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mayor, thanks.
So the applicant has provided a couple of pictures to show what the possible architectural design of these buildings may be. They've also provided a couple of items that they're going to be including in their architectural design, such as decorative trim, brick or stone, gables, decorative porch railings, as well as some architectural features such as porches, awnings, columns, and balconies. The applicant has a presentation that they will be presenting after our presentation, and they're going to go a little more in depth into their architectural design. The utility allocation, a number of these points we've already kind of touched on with looking at the more in-depth view of the site. So the major subdivision gets this site 20 points. There will be an EV charging station, 2-port in the parking lot. The stormwater will have a fountain in it. They will be complying with our residential design guidelines, which is laid out in 5.2 of the UDO. The applicant will be providing an outdoor display of public art, pollinator garden, enhanced landscape buffer, and then installation of native shade trees. As we talked about with the public gathering areas, they are providing grills to the development. They are also providing the 15,000 square foot pocket park, as well as the community garden. The drinking fountain will be within the pet run area, and then there will also be artisan designed bike racks. If you have any questions more in depth about the utility allocation policy, feel free to ask them during the question segment. So again, I'm just going to go through these standards again. So number one, whether the proposed zoning map amendment advances the public's health, safety, or welfare, whether and the extent to which the proposed rezoning is appropriate for its proposed location and is consistent with the proposed goals, objectives, and policies of the town's adopted policy guidance, whether an approval of the rezoning is reasonable and in the public's interest, and any other factors as the Board of Commissioners may deem to be relevant. And as well, we are looking for development with any plan development that is better than the stricter interpretation of the UDO standards. So staff at this time recommends accepting public comment after the applicant's presentation and referring the matter to the planning board for recommendation.
Thank you. Would the applicant come forward and give their presentation?
Sorry.
Is there a clicker? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Into the mic, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, and members of the planning board. My name is Pam Porter, and I'm with TMTLA Associates. We're a landscape architecture and land planning firm facilitating this rezoning through your rezoning process. And with me tonight is Mike Nadriga, who's the owner and developer. And Catherine, thank you for your presentation. That was probably the most in-depth staff presentation I think I have seen in a while, so I appreciate that. So I will be more brief with my comments. And as she mentioned, we are requesting rezoning from an R4C district to the PD zoning district to allow for the development of townhomes. So just a quick overview, the site is located at 901 MacTod Road, and again, is just over 2 acres in size. And as Catherine mentioned, this was rezoned not by us, but the owner got it rezoned back in 2021 for bungalow courts. But with a need for more density, Mike reached out to us to assist him with carrying this through the PD zoning so he could get additional units. And the reason we chose the PD district was because it allows us to craft a development in a way that makes sense while also makes commitments to things such as quality building type and certain amenities, which is important for us, and we know that's important for the town as well. So this slide shows our concept plan, which Catherine went over in great detail a few minutes ago. I just wanted to point out a couple different things. As she mentioned, all the units will be rear loaded. All of the access for pedestrians will be from the front door. So as units 1 through 9 will be accessed from the rear, but they will front MacTod Road, and then the remaining 4 units, 10 through 13, will front on that open space area. Our front setback is 7.5 feet. We had originally proposed 5 feet, but after speaking with some commissioners, it was determined that that felt a little too close. So we want to still provide that front-facing unit on the road, but give a little more breathing room for those units that front on MacTod Road. So we pushed the front setback back an additional 2.5 feet. We've also included a voluntary 10-foot type buffer along the north side of the project, which is adjacent to the existing church. and native trees will be used in all buffers and street trees in this development. This development utilizes pocket parks and open space sprinkled throughout. And due to the size of the development, as staff mentioned, we're utilizing the urban open space option for this, which we feel makes a lot more sense, again, due to the size of this. It's really hard to provide some of those larger amenities when you only have 13 units. So we felt this made more sense and will provide a nicer, more intimate open space experience for the people that live in this neighborhood. And in addition to these open space areas, this development will also provide the easement and construction for the section of the Corridor 8 Public Greenway, which is that green line that runs through the north side, plan north of this. And we also have a private connection, which is shown in blue, not only to the Greenway, but also to MacTod Road, which will allow for really good pedestrian circulation. And last, this development will also include an artist-designed bike rack as well as outdoor display of public art. As far as the building design goes, we wanted to include features that would make for a high-quality home. So the style of the buildings will be either craftsman, traditional, colonial, or neoclassical. And we want to foster multiple styles to create a community that's not monotonous. So even though there's only 13 units, we want to make sure that there is some differentiation between the units. So each unit looks like its own unit. It's not just one front facade flat with all one material type. And each of the units will have at least 3 of the following: front porch, awning, columns, balconies, broken roof lines, dormer, arched architectural features, chimney, all brick or stone front facade, or another architectural feature that would be approved by the planning director. And similarly, we also have included certain design elements and materials to be included, and all the units will include at least 4 of the following: decorative shake, decorative porch railing or post, shutters, decorative or functional air vents on roof or foundation, trimmed windows or recessed windows, decorative period windows, decorative brick or stone, 10% minimum is required on all the front elevations, decorative gables, decorative cornices, tin or metal roof, or other decorative feature approved by the planning director. And in addition to all those things, I'm just going to note a couple things on this slide. So the principal structure's front facade must incorporate recesses and projections along at least 50% of the length of the facade, meaning the building cannot be completely flat. It's got to have a little bit of design with recesses and projections to make all the units look individual. And in terms of entryways, variation in color scheme and texture are encouraged in order to articulate entryways to give greater recognition to these features, which we feel is really important, especially for those units that front on MacTod Road. We want the front doors to really read well to the people that live in these units as well as people driving or walking by. And with regard to material and color palette, vinyl siding is not permitted. We know that's important, and it's important for us as well, so no vinyl siding, but vinyl windows and other vinyl decorative elements will be permitted because vinyl windows are pretty standard. It's hard to find something else, but no vinyl siding. And a varied color palette shall be utilized on homes throughout the subdivision. And I'm just going to touch on the highlighted items for the next couple slides. So for specific requirements for townhomes, the front elevation of each single-family attached unit shall contain a minimum of 10% masonry, brick, or stone, which I mentioned a minute ago, and shall contain a minimum of 2 siding materials, for example, stone and hardy plank or cementitious siding, brick, or shake. No 2 consecutive units within a single building shall contain the exact same front elevation with regard to material or color palette. And the next 2 slides, this is a repeat of what you just saw, but I just wanted to reiterate that this is an example of what we want these units to look like. There's no builder involved yet, but in terms of material, color palette, roof lines, the decorative elements that I've already mentioned, these are good examples of what this could be. And we don't have a builder, as I mentioned, but with the way the conditions read, it will make for a really nice unit when the builder is chosen. They have to adhere to our zoning conditions. So these are examples. And again, these are not the exact units that are going to get built. For example, the one on the left doesn't have any stone on it. Obviously, we would need 10% minimum based on our conditions, but it just shows how there's articulation in the building and the roof lines vary and there's different decorative features. And then same with this as well. You can see there's different elements between all these units that really allow them to read as a single unit, even though it's one unit and part of a larger building. And the next couple slides are zoning conditions. I'm just going to touch on a couple because I'm sure you've read through them all previously. So we're providing a 10-foot wide type A buffer along the church to the north, where single-family detached units are located adjacent to the shared property line. It gives some privacy for our proposed development. It also gives some privacy for the church. We are committing to providing foundation plants along the front facade of the units that front on MacTodd Road in lieu of a streetscape buffer. Again, it's hard to do streetscape buffer when your units are 7.5 feet from the right-of-way, but we still wanted to do something, so staff suggested we do some foundation plants in lieu of that buffer, and we thought that made sense. And a minimum of the following shall be planted: 3 evergreen shrubs, 12 inches height at installation per unit shall be planted, or shall be planted, and they have to be maintained at 18 inches tall where they're located near around a site triangle. And then plant selection will be determined at site plan. We had a typical detail. Note that this is a minimum, and the likelihood there's going to be more than 3 plants is pretty high because these units are going to be nice, but we felt like we needed to start with some sort of minimum for that. Vinyl siding, again, shall not be permitted, but vinyl accents will be permitted. Developers shall provide the easement and construction of the Greenway Trail, which is pretty significant. It runs along pretty much the longest side of this project within that stream buffer and sewer easement area. And then native trees shall be used for any street tree and buffer planting. And that is my quick presentation. I think staff gave a really good overview, so I didn't want to get into too much detail. We're excited to see this come to fruition. It's a small little infill type project, but we think it has the potential to be really cool. And myself and Mike, the owner, are available for questions. And we thank you for your consideration of our request.
Now we will go around the board commissioners to ask questions concerning this presentation, starting with Commissioner Davis,
None at this time, sir.
Miles,
None at this time.
Commissioner Clark,
None at this time.
Commissioner Baxter.
I have a request that the planning board ask all questions and get all answers from staff and the applicant before the close of the joint public hearing. This will circumvent the planning board from making a recommendation based on information that the board doesn't have. So any and all questions that you have, could you please ask them now so that we have the opportunity to hear what your thoughts are? That would be super helpful. But I actually have no questions myself for either staff or the applicant at this point.
Thank you. Commissioner Harrison. Thank you. Hearing none from the board, we will now go to the planning board. And if they have any questions, comments for the applicant or staff, we'll start with Mr. Rail.
The only comment I have is I really like what you did with the open spaces. So that was a nice, nice touch, nice use of the open space. So
When it's small, you have to get creative. So,
Yeah.
Thank
no
you.
questions.
I guess I too like what you're doing with the open spaces. I guess my only question would be, because the garden sounds really interesting that you may have, but my only question would be is would that, I know that you do have an HOA that you probably put involved, would they be the ones over that to govern the garden continuously?
So that has not been detailed out yet, but typically what happens is if there's an HOA, they maintain common areas, and any of the open space would be considered a common area. So without saying definitely for sure it would be the HOA, it would likely be the HOA. But they also may have volunteers in the neighborhood that help. You're talking about the community garden specifically?
Yeah, specifically the community
So it
garden.
would likely also be folks in the neighborhood too. If they each have like a planter box or something, they would have to like maintain their own space. But I'm sure that that would be worked out between the HOA and the residents at that time.
Thank you.
Mr. Shelley?
I have two questions. Kind of in keeping with the HOA theme. So I saw that the alleyways, I guess, are going to be, there's going to be a private maintenance
Yeah,
agreement?
those will be maintained by the HOA, correct?
Or they'll be maintained by the
Yes.
HOA?
Yes, sir.
Will they be built to the specifications of the DOT? So if at some point the HOA wanted to try and turn them over to the DOT, would that be done?
DOT is not going to want these roads, I don't think. They're not wide enough. They're meant to read as alleys, private access, and one of the reasons there were a couple reasons we went with alley. One is for space, because it saves space. A public street takes up a really wide space. But also thinking about, does the town want this to be public road for town maintenance? And it was just so small that we just decided that alleys would be the best way to go for that. So I don't see DOT ever wanting to take this over. I think that would be more burdensome for them because it's such a small space. So the short answer is no, they're not built to DOT standards because it's not a right of way. It's a private alley.
What, and I understand what you're saying, I totally get that. My concern would be just, particularly if there are going to be heavy vehicles, potentially trash trucks, fire trucks, going in there and turning around and whatnot.
It'll be heavy-duty pavement to accommodate that.
Is there,
Yeah.
I guess my question would be just what kind of assurance do we have to that?
Yeah, so if you think about a parking lot, oftentimes parking lots in places where there's dumpsters, the drive aisle between the parking spaces is like a heavy-duty pavement for that very reason, because otherwise trash trucks just tear up the pavement. So for this, we've not noted that on this particular plan, but the plan would be for it to be heavy-duty for that reason. Otherwise, it'd just be a maintenance nightmare.
Yeah, and it would get costly for
Correct,
13
yeah.
residents trying to split.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right.
My other question might be better directed to staff. The front setback, how does that compare to the one that's recently opened up down on the Rendell?
Okay, so I'm going to speak a little bit to your previous question real quick. So all private streets in town are still required to be built to town standards. And so we'll be doing the TRC review of that for a construction drawing if the board chooses to approve this project. And at that time, we'll be making sure that it's going to be able to support heavy trucks as well as be built to the town standard. And then as far as the Arundel townhomes, I don't know, do you know what the front setback is, Mike?
I think I might have misunderstood your question. Like the thickness of the pavement design, that will be built to the town standard. The width is what varies. So I apologize if that was
No,
not
that's okay.
clear
That's
in
okay.
my comments.
That's quite all right.
All right, so the North Arundel townhome standards, the minimum front yard setback in the downtown periphery district is only 5 feet. On top of that, there's less than 5 feet between the sidewalk and the curb line. So while this particular project will be back 2.5 additional feet from the front property line, additionally, there's more space between the sidewalk and the curb. So the total distance, as Kate mentioned earlier, will be approximately 17.5 feet, whereas this particular location is much closer.
Yeah, okay. And there's no danger, I guess, of the shade trees impacting power lines and/or utility lines underground with the roots and whatnot?
Yeah, so with any trees planted in the right-of-way, we consider the height and the size of the tree in regards to utilities. So if there's overhead utilities, it's required to be an understory tree, which is a shorter tree than the typical shade tree that you see used as street trees. As well, often DOT will require a understory tree instead of a shade tree, so that's something that will be discussed at construction drawing phase.
And the last question, I think you answered, but I just wanted to be clear, going back to the 2021 rezoning. So if, for some reason, this one was not recommended for approval, it would revert back to that?
So the zoning, until a board approves a new zoning, the zoning will remain that conditional zoning. And with that conditional zoning, a site plan was submitted. And so if anybody, even if the developer chose to sell that property, or to develop on that property, it would be beholden to that current zoning and those current plans. You could always see another rezoning coming before you potentially for that site, but until it gets rezoned, that's the zoning for that site.
That's all my questions.
Mr. Lowry?
So just two quick questions. With the median divided, are we talking it's only right in, right out? Because I didn't see where there was going to be access to turn left. And I know with the previous rezoning, there was left in.
Yeah, so the image that we used was just kind of an example of what a street section might look like for this street, accounting for the setbacks as well as all of our standards. So that's something that, this is a DOT road, and so it would be something that during the process of construction drawings as the applicant's requesting their driveway permit will be discussed as far as whether full access will be granted or not. I don't know whether the applicant has a hope for what access will be granted, but that's kind of how that process works. And so if the applicant is granted full access, then that would be reflected in a turn lane instead of a protected median.
Okay. And then, so this is going to be on town as far as the public utilities and things like that, as far as like trash pickup or whatever, that's not going to be a private or common trash pickup or anything like that, like a dumpster, a common dumpster for them?
Dumpster, there will be rollout carts that'll be accessed from the rear where the private access is.
Okay. And there will be room to get all those collected? It seems pretty tight, so.
Yeah, I mean, there should be that.
Okay.
And if there, during site plan, if there needs to be like a common collection area as opposed to, in the rear of the units, we can work that out, but we're not concerned with that. But no, we're not doing a dumpster. We decided that was not the way to go for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those either, so. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
No questions.
Jenkins?
No questions.
Mr. Adams?
Quick question, will there be like a rental cap when you guys build when it's built? Is there like, can people rent them out, or is it going to be?
So the intention is for these to be for sale. There's no plan for them to be rented. If a private owner buys and rents in the future, I mean, I don't know as if we have control over that or if it's even like legal to dictate that, but on the onset, these will be for sale. There's no plan for these to be rental.
Thank you.
Is that correct, Mike?
Seen. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask one
Yep.
more?
Ms. Shelley?
Did I miss this? Is there going to be garages?
Yeah.
So there'll be a 20-foot driveway and a garage. Because I'm just looking to, it looks like you have, it's hard for my old eyes to read the tiny print. How many guest parking spaces are there? Is it 6?
I believe it's 6.
So each unit essentially would have room for 2 vehicles, and then there's like 6 overflow. Okay, sounds good.
Driveway standards are put in place to allow that stacking to occur.
Right. Sounds good.
Mr. Adams, did you have any more?
That is it, thank you.
Any other questions from the planning board? Any other questions from the board? Commissioner Miles?
Currently, with the R4-C zoning, what can be built there in that property?
The current zoning for the property?
Yes,
Yeah. I'll go back to that slide. Sorry, my horrible clicking.
Is that good?
I give myself whiplash. All right. All right, so this is what was previously approved back in 2021.
Okay.
It was June 2021.
Okay.
And so basically, as this was a conditional rezoning, like any conditional rezoning, the applicant came with saying, we want to follow the R4 district with these conditions, and so those conditions were these reductions in the setback, the reduction in the rear setback, and then the condition about the private maintenance agreement. And then the site plan, as part of that conditional rezoning, becomes something that the applicant is also beholden to, is a general similar layout to this. There's definitely some things that might change at construction drawing, but with any conditional rezoning, we're looking for a very similar as far as UDO, meeting the UDO, following this site plan, or with any conditional rezoning, whatever site plan was approved within that conditional rezoning.
Thank you.
A question from the board. Ms. Miles?
At the neighborhood meeting, what kind of concerns were brought up by the citizens? Who would have that answer?
We had a neighborhood meeting on December 19th, and there was nobody that showed up.
Nobody showed up. Okay, thank you.
And we were there for 2 hours. We waited the whole time just to make sure, but nobody showed up.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Miles?
No, sir.
Commissioner Harrison?
I just have a comment question. I know that this property is in close proximity to a private family-owned cemetery. So I just wanted to ensure or just ask if there had been any conversations with the family to ensure that there are no graves close to this site or anything that would be disturbed with this construction.
I am not sure. Mike, do you know the answer to that, if there's been any discussion? I don't believe there's any graves on this site, but we can look into that just as a CYI
Just a
on our
courtesy,
end. But
thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, if they're off-site, we wouldn't be disturbing them because
Okay.
we're limiting our construction to just our site. We're not going off-site for anything.
Right, and it's close to the site. So,
Okay.
with the land, with moving and ground,
Sure,
just want
that
to ensure.
shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we don't anticipate that to be an issue.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miles?
I'm going to kind of piggyback off that question. What kind of buffer are we using back there? And that's been brought to on that backside?
What lot is the cemetery on? Is
It's
it on
gonna
the
be-
church side?
No, ma'am, on the backside, what I call, let's see, directly behind your guest parking. I don't think it's guest parking looks like.
There's a stream buffer
There's a
back there.
creek, yeah.
That's
Okay, good,
wooded.
good, yeah.
The only disturbance in there would be for the construction of the town greenway, but otherwise it'll be undisturbed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Either board at this time? Thank you. Public hearing. The public hearing is an opportunity for the public to express thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opinions regarding the proposed request for the Board of Commissioners and Planning Board. The Board of Commissioners, Planning Board, staff, applicant will not engage in dialogue at this time. If the public has questions pertaining to the development, please contact town staff or the applicant following the joint public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. We will now take public comment at the podium on my left. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the development. Hearing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of the development? Hearing none, Is there anyone who wishes to speak neither for nor against, but just have something to say about this case? Come to the podium, please. State your name and address.
My name is Nicholas Walton. I live at 4014 Watsona Drive. I had a speech prepared in opposition to the development, but now looking at it, it's going to be better than what it was previously zoned to be. Like, from what I've seen it from the plan, it looks like it to be like a detached single-family small neighborhood, but now I see it's going to change it and make it better. It's not what I want, but I would rather take it, because since Zebulon South got canceled, I kind of regret being opposed to it, because like I didn't thought the vote for it was gonna completely cancel it. I thought it was just gonna like move back to the developer and just have them fix it and to move on to like vote on it or not. But to prevent that from happening, I'll just vote in favor. It's not what I want, but it's better than the alternative. So yeah, thank you.
Anyone else wishes to speak neither for or against?
Not speaking, just here.
If there's no one else that wishes to speak, I will close the public hearing and refer the matter to the planning board for consideration. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion adjourned.